Recording started. Lights, camera, action. Hello.
Hello, friends. This
Hel-
is a conversation we are continuing from last Monday
Hello, comrades.
about Senator Armstrongism.
Yes.
So do you remember where we were exactly? Was like, or do I need to go over it again?
I don't remember shit from
Okay,
what we discussed.
so so everyone gets Senator Armstrong done wrong because he couches everything in terms of weak and strong, but that's kind of a misinterpretation of, or it's not a misinterpretation. It's just he chose poor words because his whole point is that people are weak because they're held back, and if they were allowed to be strong, they would be strong. Like people would pursue what their passions, people would fulfill themselves basically. They would become the best version of themselves if they were prevented from if they were released from their shackles, so to speak. And that's what he was all about,
Yeah.
which is why he respected like Jetstream Sam and like if you just look at all the people that he wanted on his crew, they were all people who were like orphans of war and things like that.
Yeah, I think though one of the problems, and we talked about this a little afterwards, was that it is still in a way characterized from weak and strong in the sense that uh the people, if they feel like to fulfill their wants and needs is to hurt someone else in the process, and they are stronger physically, financially, etc., then they can just do that, and there's nothing stopping them from doing that.
Well, specifically in the context of Metal Gear Rising Revengeance, he's talking specifically to Raiden in this case,
Yeah.
and so the whole point of that game is to talk about how ideas are in a way they're genes. It's based on a book called by Richard Dawkins called The Selfish Gene. I've read it. It's a really good book. I recommend everyone read it because it'll kind of change your perspective on biology and things like that, and you'll kind of come to realize that you hate your genes because your genes actually don't care about you. So that's a different discussion though. But what Senator Armstrong was trying to do is he was trying to fight this meme, this behavioral gene, so to speak, of people wanting to be weak, and to do it, he had to do all this stuff in order to, like he said, literally, I need to fund war to end war and things like that.
Yeah.
And then finally, like specifically between Senator Armstrong and Raiden, specifically, the song at the end of the game, the lyrics are "Standing here, I realize
You're
you
just
were
like
just
me.
like me,
Yeah.
trying to make history." Yeah, but who's to judge the right from wrong?
Bro got
I
that
forget the
memorized.
next line, but then yeah. Well, I know most. I listen to it all the time. The
Yeah.
the last the last stanza though is in the violence breeds violence, but in the end it has to be this way, and it's just because like what Senator Armstrong was trying to do is he was trying to reset the world, so to speak, from this position of weakness to unleash the true human potential of strength. And when Raiden kills him, he actually says, "I've won because I've transferred my meme onto you." And then literally at the end of the game, you see Raiden going and doing what he was always wanted to do, which is kill bad guys.
Yeah. Raiden embodied
So
his ideals of the strong doing whatever they wanted to do. So,
no, that's
well,
not
no,
at all. That's
well,
not at all what he wanted.
Raiden wanted. Well,
It's not.
Raiden
It's not the
wanted.
strong.
Well, no, it was Raiden wanted to do a specific thing, and by killing Armstrong, he fulfilled his purpose. Right?
No,
Raiden got to do
no.
what he wanted
When
to.
when
Raiden was doing what he wanted to do, disregarding all rules and regulations and everything involved. Senator Armstrong saw Raiden as strong, which is why when Raiden was tricking him and saying like, "All right, I see your point," then instead of fighting, he picked him up off the ground and hugged him, in which then Raiden tricked him and then threw him over his shoulder.
well, no, and literally in the end, when Raiden punches his heart out and rips it out,
Yeah,
he he literally congratulates him because Raiden is no longer hiding from who he really is. And Raiden specifically, like when Senator Armstrong is talking about weak and strong, he's talking specifically about Raiden because Raiden's whole thing is I use my sword as a tool of justice. And Jetstream Sam, the previous guy, was like, no, you don't. You just like killing people, and you need to embrace the fact that you're really good at killing people, and that's who you really are. So when Raiden killed Senator Armstrong, Senator Armstrong was happy because Raiden finally embraced who he really was. Specifically Raiden.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Get BTFO'd.
ETFO'd. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still don't quite.
Is that it for Senator Armstrong? Is
I
it?
mean, I still don't quite
What?
see
Oh,
it
go
that
ahead.
way, but I still think that
Yeah.
um, it overall as an ideology, it is flawed. I think that's really the idea. Is that as an ideology, we both probably agree it's flawed in uh,
Well,
ways,
well,
right?
all ideologies are
Like,
made by human beings are flawed.
what is your problem with this ideal, this ideology?
Well, I mean, my problem with it is with every ideology is that if you take it to its extreme, it will be used for evil. So, I mean, I do agree. I want people to be who they really are. Like, that's who I want. Like, in my head, that's what Senator Armstrongism is, but I don't want them to be to that point where they're just like psychopathic. Like, I do want them to have I want them to have some self restraint and things like that.
Okay.
I
Would you?
just don't I just don't want that self I don't want it to go just to wrap it up. I don't want it to go the other way where it's anti Senator Armstrong where people are so self-restrained that they can't be who they are at all.
Okay. How is that completely different from yours? And how would you say that your ideology to an extreme would then be evil, since it is also made by man, by you?
I'm not a man. Anyways, I don't know. I mean, I would say I largely agree with Senator Armstrong. I think the only thing I disagree with is that violence should be. I think violence should only be used as a really a last resort, and if you can't, and it should only be used as a way if you can't find a way to live with someone, like not live with someone, but like if you can't just live and let live, so to speak, like if there's a confrontation and there's no way to avoid the confrontation, then yes, you have to use violence in that point. But whereas Senator Armstrong was a lot more willing to, he was more okay with violence. So I do see what you mean by he is kind of like might makes right, but I don't really see it necessarily that much. But again, take it to its extreme, might makes right.
Yeah, taking any ideology to an extreme, it gets you the root of what that thing is. And under Senator Armstrongism, that root is but might makes right, right? So
Yeah,
that's
but
the
I
root
mean,
of what he's talking about. The way he words things can be one thing, but the way the ideology plays out in the end is another can be another thing altogether. And with taken to its extreme, it ends up just being might is right, the strong, like what he was saying, even though it could be it was an allegory for something else. But in the end, it's still the strong gets to do whatever they want, disregarding what the weak end up wanting, which is why he also hates other politicians, lawyers, etc. Right? Because they don't fight. He sees them as weak.
yeah, well, and I mean, like, I do agree with Senator Armstrong that I think bureaucracy does get in the way of preventing people from achieving who they really are and things like that. Like, just as a specific example, we have a lot of laws and regulations on how you can make a business. You have to get a business license and all this stuff, and it makes it really difficult to set up a business. Even though in America it's actually fairly easy, I still think there's some barriers to entry and things like that. I don't think it should be that way. And that's like in my head, that's like Senator Armstrong ism applied practically. Like we should try to allow people to, if they want to make a business, why should we have all these barriers to entry in the way?
Yeah, I think we should definitely, in a lot of cases, be a little looser on certain aspects like businesses, home building, etc. Um, but
Hmm.
we shouldn't have a lack of legislation altogether and regulation. Some is necessary for a functioning society, but too much also exists as well. There's a nice medium balance between everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Am I finally getting through to you?
No.
No, that's when you used to have to say you're batshit insane.
You're
Anyways,
batshit. I
but
haven't seen it in a while, yeah. But anyways, is that how we run this topic through the ground?
we've run it through. We've
If
run it through. We've pulled its heart out and consumed its
yeah,
energy and
and in
added
the
it to our
end,
own.
we ended up being the same. Me and you and I.
Yeah. In the end, there was violence, and it had to be this way.
It just had to be this way.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. That game is fucking amazing.
Alrighty.
Everyone should play it.
No, it is an amazing game.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know, Jetstream Sam is like the best character ever, and it is too bad that he is no longer among us.
Among Us.
Yeah,
Among Us.
he was
We should make
fucking
this a
amazing.
gaming channel. We just only play Among Us.
No, no, I would kill myself. I
With
would kill myself on stream
the gun you have in the back somewhere, right?
with the gun.
The
In this
guns.
picture, there's at least like 7 guns somewhere.
Yeah, right on your desk,
At
right in front of you,
least
and your holster, and your other side, fucking completely open. Then you have one in the drawer, right under your bed, under your pillow, right?
the crotch gun.
The
Can't
crotch
forget
gun.
that.
Yeah, yeah. And you got the was it
The
the ring
crotch gun.
pistol, right?
No, I'm just kidding.
All right.
All right, what's the next topic?
Champagne socialism, everyone's favorite. That's yeah. That's not
But
fucking champagne, dumbass. I don't have champagne either. I have
all
white
right,
wine.
so so since this is your topic,
Yes.
you introduce it.
Champagne socialism, if you don't know what it is the idea that someone, at least online, advocates for socialism, advocates for the principles of socialism, while not doing it themselves. So this can be like your Hassan types, second thought types, these kind of people, where, like, for example, second thought, as we actually did on our tier list, right at the top. Yeah, we'll do that later and actually properly do it. But he advocates from his channel socialist ideas, socialist theories, and even promotes socialistic figures. This could be your Maoist people. This could be your Stalins, etc., Marx. But at the same time, he has a second channel that is purely to talk about sports cards and racing them and doing all this kind of stuff with sports cars, which is completely different from his main channel, where he also advocates for things like the environment. Hassan, he doesn't pay his workers really. He advocates for communal workers and stuff like workers owning their production, but at the same time, he doesn't practice it. So these are like your champagne socialists. So that's just about it. What they are.
So I'm gonna give a little bit of a nuanced view. I'm not as angry necessarily with people who don't live perfectly by their principles because I don't think it's possible for literally anyone to live by their principles perfectly. It's just not possible. But I do think that people should try to live by their principles as best they can. And the thing about the champagne socialists is they the thing that kind of frustrates me about them is they talk about the rich as if they are not that. And I wouldn't care if they were rich and if they were like, yeah, I'm rich, I'm wealthy. I don't agree with this system. It just happens to be, I the predicament I found myself in because, of the work I put into this channel and things like that. But they don't do that. They act like the rich don't deserve anything in that, or that all rich people are the same and that all rich people don't deserve anything, and that though the champagne socialists are somehow different from the rich and things like that. And it's like, well, I mean, okay.
And
So
we've talked about. I think I talked about this a little last time about reaction stuff. Hassan is his really big thing is a reaction channel, which is probably the most exploitative thing you can do to workers, the people that actually produce the videos. They spend the time and energy to do this for you to spend no time or energy just watching it and recording it. And that is, if you're a socialist, you should be against all that kind of stuff, anyways. And that's all he does is
yeah,
reaction stuff.
and specifically with Hassan, second thought's a little bit more intelligent. I mean, a little bit is like,
Like you have
but
that,
I
and then you
mean,
have like
second
that.
thought at the
Yeah.
yeah, but second thought has at least read a socialist book at some point. I mean, he does cite some things, and so he's read a little bit. Hassan is just what he does is he just goes onto his chat, reads what his chat's saying, and just regurgitates what they're saying, basically. Like Hassan he's just a pure grifter. He doesn't say anything intelligent. He has nothing of he has no merit of anything to say. He's never read anything in his life.
As
I
I've
don't know.
as I've heard
There's no like I don't
as I've heard someone else
go
say,
ahead.
Hassan is the truest capitalist.
He is. He's a very good capitalist.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, like I mean, I could respect a champagne socialist if they were well read or somewhat well read, and they had decent ideas and things like that. Decent arguments. I don't agree with champagne socialist or socialism in general. I don't agree with their ideas, but like I would at least respect them if they had something like that. Like Jank, like people put Jank Wigger in this category because at the Young Turks they tried to unionize and he was like against it and things like
yeah.
that, and they called him a hypocrite for wanting to allow his employees or not allowing his employees unionize. And I actually kind of agreed with him because apparently they had really good working conditions, and he was like, "You guys are treated great already. Why do you need to unionize?" And I think it was just a cynical ploy on the union, the employees who wanted to unionize to get more than what they were worth and things like that. But like Jank, at least he's well read to some degree, and he at least has some I think well thought out thoughts, even if he is kind of a raging buffalo. But
Yeah.
like
Um,
Hassan, no, second thought, maybe a
so
little bit less. But
from what I've from so there was a channel that like a little podcast that Hassan and Second Thought did, but there was a third person on that. I can't remember the name of it. Like I think it's Breakfast Club or something like that. They had talked about well, there was a third guy. He was Hakeem.
to some degree, and he at least has
He was
some. Oh
Hakeem.
yeah, I know Hakeem.
Yeah. I respect him the most out of the three. From what I have not seen any controversy in regards to champagne socialism when it comes out of him. When it comes to him.
Yeah,
And out of all
I
three,
mean I don't
he's
know him that well,
sure. I
so
mean, I don't either. He
oh, go
kind
ahead.
of keeps to himself, minus that other channel that they did together, little podcast. But he's
Yeah,
probably the most well read out of all of them, and probably the biggest supporter of
yeah,
actual socialism. And I respect him the most out of them all.
yeah. I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong, like I said, with people who don't live perfectly by their ideals, because it's literally impossible to do it.
Sure,
But
but you should try
the
in any way you can. You should try, right?
yeah, well, and the biggest thing with the champagne socialists is they're like it's kind of funny because you would think they're trying to work towards getting rid of capitalism. So you would think they would be really interested in making like co-ops and things like that. Um all that kind of stuff, but you don't really see that. And
Giving
maybe
their
it's
money
because they
out.
don't know how to set it up. Maybe. I mean, again, it's hard because like for if you don't know how to set it up, you don't know how to set it up. Like so I can understand if they don't know how to set it up, but like again, they should try a little bit.
Well, with
I don't know.
his, well, I mean, there's probably a lot of books and stuff that go into how to set up co-ops and stuff, and this is already done in the U.S. and several other countries. But
Yeah.
with Hassan,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Hassan's gotten this criticism
If
a lot, and he refuses to do it. He just makes
yeah, well, I mean,
excuses.
if I ever met Hassan, I would be like, listen, like, why don't you do this, like, face to face? Because the other thing is, like, when you talk to someone online, like, sometimes people don't know how serious you are or things like that. So,
Yeah. All right. What's your thoughts on Vaush, Mr. Vaush? Would you call him
I
champagne
try not to
socialist as
think of
well?
yeah,
Yeah.
among other things.
Come
But
on.
yeah, Vosh, I don't really see him as like, I think to a certain degree, Second Thought and Hassan genuinely believe what they believe. Like they have genuine beliefs, even if they are acting hypocritical. I
Yeah.
think Vosh is actually maybe a sociopath, and he just wants power for the sake of power. So he's willing to say whatever he needs to say to get power. And he has stated, I forget when, but he has literally stated that he would say whatever he needs to say to get power.
Yeah.
He would even lie to do so. So I don't trust that he actually holds his views necessarily.
Yeah,
He has
he
stated,
also
I
doesn't
forget
know
when, but he
what water is apparently, or in agua.
oh
You remember that one?
what like the no what's the
Oh,
like the chemical makeup of it?
yeah, like someone. So he was having a discussion with someone else before, and it was like a debate thing, and they got into like the essence of stuff. I don't know how they got there or why they got there, but they were talking about the
Oh,
essence of him and a professor, and the dude was trying to say like H2O, like the chemical makeup and like the essence of what water is, and Val's just like, well, but people call it agua, so and
that is profoundly stupid.
yeah, no, it
But I
was
mean,
crazy.
if that's what he actually said, well, if that's what he actually said, then it just goes to my point that he would literally say anything to get power, including, um, oh, well, what is water even? It's called maybe it's called agua. Whatever. So that just goes to my point
Yeah,
of
no,
he's a sociopath.
yeah, he's a little out there. He's a little out there. Him and his
And
lolicon horse stuff.
his interests, that's the other thing to avoid Vosh. He's got some spicy interests.
Yeah. What other like socialist types are there on YouTube like that are big? That I can't think of any off the top of my head.
You nailed like the big three,
Yeah,
and Jank, I guess. Jank is technically a champagne socialist. Anna Kasparian, what about her? What do you think
and
about her?
I don't know enough about her to have a full discussion on her. If you wanted to say some stuff about her, you can, but I don't know much about her.
Um, she used to be really annoying, and she used to be kind of a shrill, shrieking champagne socialist, but she's actually kind of toned down a lot, and she's actually gotten better at having the good faith arguments and things like that. So
Yeah.
and the funny thing is like she's actually become a little bit right wing because there was the whole birthing person thing, and she said,
Oh.
"Don't call me a birthing person," and a bunch of people on the progressive right were like, "You are a birthing person," and so it's funny she actually got pushed to the right technically,
See, I feel like that
but
lasted for
that's
like
a
a
that's
month and then it was kind of done. No one really discussed that anymore. It's like with the Latinx thing, no one's actually like serious
well
about that like they used to be.
Yeah, but well, okay, but the whole point of those things is it's to push the Overton window one way or the other. And so when Anna stood up against it, it was very clearly her standing against where the Overton window was being pushed, and it was stopped because birthing person was stopped. Like nobody calls it that. So it's a good thing because we don't want language to be changed like that. That's just bad and cringe.
Well, I mean, we can get back into this because I also say that language changes all the time, and changing of languages is a good thing over time. But
I disagree. I
I know.
disagree.
Someone
The
asked
Holy
in chat,
Latin.
"What is the progressive right?"
They do exist. I would say neoconservatism is basically progressive conservatism. It's like they're the same thing. They don't care about anything but power too, and they'll do whatever they need to get power, which is why you see a lot of neocons actually do give into like the whatever the current thing is, basically, like the pronouns and things like
So,
that. So
uh, yeah, I would say probably the right wing populism is probably a progressive right movement.
yeah, that too. I would agree with that. Yeah. I don't like populism in general, so and populism
Yeah,
is a very
reactionary movement.
progressive ideology.
It's very
Yeah.
reactionary. Yeah, yeah, MAGA.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but well,
MAGA. Yeah,
but so is progressivism. Like, well, it's funny because like the champagne socialism and MAGAism advocate for more or less the same thing. They just advocate in kind of different ways of accomplishing that.
yeah. You know,
But
we both don't like MAGA, and we don't like socialists either. Really,
no, wait, hold on, time out. I think MAGA is great. It's hilarious, and I want more of it.
politically, like politically, you don't like it.
Oh yeah, yeah, MAGA is stupid
Yeah,
politically.
you know. But when it comes to just the fun of it, they're hilarious. We love them just for the comedy of it all. But as a political movement, it
Yeah.
is absolutely like we probably say a thing about socialists. The socialists online are hilarious to listen to and watch and trying to weasel around certain things, but we both hate them politically, like ideology wise.
Yeah. Yeah, they're dumb.
Yeah. We can start talking about a couple other people, different movements and stuff. Because unless you want to go into
Let's
some of
do
the,
it.
unless you want to go into some of the other things that I had brought up as topic wise,
No, go ahead.
go ahead with what? There's those two different things.
Go ahead with your topic.
Topic. I haven't. I didn't know I thought we'd have more to talk about.
We're gonna go deeper into this topic. Okay, go ahead with the topic. What topic? You
So,
trying to gaslight me, bro?
what do you think of techno fascists?
You mean technocracy?
You just said the guy said techno fascists. So
Okay, well,
I guess
is he talking about technocracy? Because
maybe.
I hate technocracy. Well, because okay, techno fascism. It sounds like technocracy. Do you know what a technocracy is?
Yeah. Roughly. You might have to explain it though. He said technocracy
Well,
is a
you
form of
explain.
it. Huh?
Well, no. Okay, you explain what you think technocracy is, and I'll say if you're correct or not.
Uh, God. I know it's something to do with technology. So it's like
Nope. Nope.
no.
Wrong.
Is it? It's
Wrong. You're
I
already wrong.
I don't think it's the one where like the
It's
it's like
not
the top
technology.
people
It's technical.
techno. Is it the one?
Anyways,
Is it the one where like the people like the top of field people or whatever? They're ones that run different things. Is it that?
very close. Very close. It's the idea that specialists and specialization ought to
Yeah.
be the way. Ought to be what leadership is based off of. So if
Okay.
you're and like so for example, like with COVID-19, um if we were in a technocracy, Anthony Fauci would have literally been the dictator of everything. Everyone would have listened to him because he knows how to best to deal with a pandemic. And if there was a space meteor about to hit the Earth, the head of NASA would be the technocrat. He would, or not even the head of NASA necessarily. It'd be whoever's in charge of their asteroid redirect mission. He would be in charge. Like we would give dictatorial powers of him on how to figure it out, and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I hate technocracy
Well,
because it takes away individual agency.
yeah,
It makes everyone a tool.
well, you also hate all other ideologies but your own. So yeah. Yeah. I know.
Indeed.
Uh, why conservatism is antithetical to the ideas of liberty.
I mean, well, okay. It depends on that depends on a bunch of factors. I do think modern conservatism
Yeah.
is antithetical to liberty because I think they want to go back to this past that never existed in the first place, and they've deluded themselves into thinking that in order to achieve that, they need to use the power of government to get back to this past that never existed.
Yeah.
So not only are they insane, they want to use the evil tools and the power of evil to accomplish this insane project. So yeah.
Yeah, so like conservatism, traditionalism, these are terrible for ideas of liberty and freedom because it forces this idea onto everyone else and tries to make them comply, which is what progressivism tries to fight by limiting that power and doing or even getting more power depending on how they want to do it. There's either limiting power for progressivism in which they limit it so that way you can't force it, or they increase that power to get rid of that traditionalism in the first place. There's those two different branches.
I wouldn't call progressivism pro freedom either, because the
Well,
history of progressivism has also been a history of taking liberties away and treating people as if like
sure, but
they both treat
the
people as if they're
so
tools.
progressivism is just to progress towards something. So there's progressing towards libertarianism or towards the idea of liberty, and there's progressing towards something like fascism or socialism, communism, etc. Right? There's different kinds of progressivism. We're progressives in the sense that we want to progress towards our ideas, and then there's the champagne socialists who would want to progress towards their ideas.
Well, wait, hold on. There could be a progressivism where they're progressing towards totalitarianism, and therefore the conservative position is actually the liberal position. So I don't like the way you're
Well,
couching that.
I'm thinking more in the US context, traditionalism and conservatism are in the sense the same. They want to go back to a traditional values. Do you want to go back to those original
But
traditional values?
but in the U.S. context then of progressivism, we look back at like the progressive era where they had all this awful stuff like eugenics and segregation and like all sorts of terrible human experimentation and things like that. Like I don't know, man. And like progressivism also brought us like they brought us the ban on alcohol and things like that. Like there were a bunch of anti-liberty things that the progressive era did. Now there were some pro-liberty things too, like the suffragettes were progressive and things like that. So good on progressives for getting women the right to vote, but the progressive era also brought us awful, evil eugenics programs and
Sure, but now,
like lobotomizing people.
but overall, nowadays at least, most progressives would be against those kind of things, right? They wouldn't go back. Conservatives might want to go back to those kind of things, maybe, but modern day progressives don't
No.
really do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Conservatives,
No, are you kidding me? Modern progressives are all for like
not eugenics.
I
No,
mean,
not for that kind of stuff.
have you heard of abortion, my friend?
I
Abortion is a eugenics program.
I disagree. They're
It
not
is
people.
very much an abortion program.
Abortion. They're not people. So
There, it's not eugenics is not just about literal people. Eugenics is about preventing certain people from being born or contributing to the population. Like, for example, it was a eugenics program. Like Margaret Sanger literally set up Planned Parenthood as a eugenics program to get rid of black people, basically.
okay.
Like,
I mean, I still support
yeah,
abortion, but I wouldn't quite call it eugenics.
no, it is 100% a eugenics program. Like, not even I
Eugenics is usually targeted
like
towards specific groups, but modern day wise, abortion
like
isn't
like
really
when
targeted
Margaret
towards
Sanger
groups.
set it up, like when Margaret Sanger set it up to kill the black people, to
You
eugenicize the black people.
you can have something set up for a bad reason, uh, and then it later on change its purpose and reason to something else entirely, right? You don't? Do you agree or disagree with that?
No, it
You think it
well,
has to
okay,
have it?
then
You think it has
I
to have
still
its original purpose?
I still disagree because the majority of aborted babies today are black, so I don't
because
think
of
it has
because of
changed, to be
because of
honest.
other things going on though, right? There's other stuff going on that would then result in higher abortion rates. If you fix those other problems,
I
then you reduce the abortions
like
overall,
what? What are the other things?
providing people basic necessities to life so that way they can actually afford to fucking live.
I don't think that's why they're getting abortions. I think
Abortion
they're getting abortions because
uh,
they I think most people like in America, like most people are fine. Like I there are very few people who actually are literally that destitute that they can't survive
uh,
without like
but
the
it's
government.
it's a feeling that they can't afford it, right? Um and a lot of people when they are pregnant can feel as if they're not financially secure, emotionally secure, etc. And these kind of
Well,
things
there's
are higher, like these insecurities are higher in black
well
populations. So of course they're going to result in
okay.
higher abortions. If you fix those problems, then you can fix the abortion rate.
Well, okay, then I mean, then we're getting into discussion that conservatives like to have, which is about the family, which I don't agree with conservatives on everything, but I do agree that like I think families are important. Like it would be helpful to in order to end abortion to like, have people have stronger and stable families and
I
things
wouldn't
like
even
that. So
say
I do agree
necessarily
with that.
stronger families, but stronger communities, right? If you have a stronger, if you have a,
That yeah, I agree with that.
communities are stronger than family ties, right? The bond you have with your friends can be stronger and usually is stronger than the ones with your families.
I
I mean, look
mean,
at you,
maybe
right?
recently, but well, okay, I'm an outlier.
I mean,
Like
no,
my family
but the thing
life
is
is
that's most people.
and
Most
that's
people,
well
at
and
least in modern day, right? Most
well
people don't feel like they have a good
well, and
tie
it,
with their
it
family, but they have higher ties with their friends and
but it
friends and
hasn't but
community.
it hasn't been this it hasn't been this way for more than like 20 years because divorce rates have gone through the roof because of all sorts of things that we're dealing with in the modern age. And I do agree that communities are important, but like family ties are like I hate to side with a certain Discord community that we like to talk about a lot, but
Yeah.
like you do like families do have an interest in your survival at the very least, and I will cite Richard Dawkins, The Selfish Gene. because their genes are your genes, and genes want to propagate themselves.
Yeah,
Like,
but
this is
also,
why I said earlier, you'll hate your genes.
and
Like,
for
but hold on, wait, pause, but pause. I just want to say, you saying that like the family situation today is garbage. I agree, and that may be a reason why abortion is a problem, but it has not always been this way.
yeah. Also, real quick, Yunand me. I can't pronounce the fucking name. Feel free to follow as well. Just FYI. But he said he or
What
she
is
or he, she, it, whatever, whoever it is, said a pact sworn in blood is
assume the
thicker
gender?
than the waters of the womb.
Maybe, I don't know. My mom still calls me all the time, and I ignore her because I don't want to deal
Yeah,
with that.
but every
So
time I call you, you come in. You come. So crazy.
yeah, that's the situation is a little bit different.
But no, and
Go
for
figure. When I was a little kid, I thought my mom was important.
sure, but you can also look for millions of years. We've been community, right? The idea is that the community is the strongest thing, and the individuals work for the communities. That's been done for millions of years. It's not been the
But
nuclear family is not the norm.
wait, but well, it isn't the norm because your community for hundreds of thousands of years were like the people you lived with were your literal blood kins. They were blood relatives and things like that. You lived in tribes where you were related to everyone in some capacity by blood, and it's only very recently that that's not the case at all. Like, even in like, so like in the town that I work at this high school that I work at in rural Oregon, like most of the people there are either like brothers and sisters or cousins or second cousins by either by blood or marriage. Like, this community is so small that most people are related to each other. And that's how it's been for even through most of the agricultural part of human history. It's only very recently during urbanization that we have large groups, massively dense groups of people who aren't related to each other next to each other and interacting with each other.
Sure, but you have a higher sense of community in these bigger like so something that I like to promote as well is more
Wow.
like walking and biking infrastructure, make things like more local, more communal, right? Like you probably even agree with something like that, right?
No,
No?
no.
No? You want everything to
I mean,
be
if people
car
want it,
dependent.
sure, but I don't.
You don't want car
I
dependency, right?
listen. That's a different discussion. If people want it, sure, but I don't want it.
Why
You can
not?
fuck off. I'm not gonna pay for that. I don't want it because I like my motorcycle. Fuck you.
You
Can't
can
make me pay for a bike. Fuck you.
still have a motorcycle. There can
No.
still be roadways because the US is fucking massive, so there will always be
Cool.
roadways.
I'm not gonna pay for it. So fuck you.
Well, you know what?
I'm
Fucking
not gonna use it. I'm
gunpoint.
not gonna use it.
Fucking gunpoint. You're fucking
I'm
paying
not gonna
for
use it.
it.
I'm I'm not gonna use it. So I don't want to pay for it. So fuck you.
Thank you for the follow. But no, I mean, you change the fucking system. But I
I know
want
what
to
you're
change the
saying.
yeah. But these kind of things create greater senses of community, which can stop a lot of problems in the U.S. We need greater sense of community. Church used to be a really big thing during the 50s, 60s, etc. Right?
Okay, Ben Shapiro.
But I don't necessarily think church is necessary. It's just a good. It's a simple way of creating community, but it's not the only way of doing it.
Why not let people create the communities they want and allow them to exist unmolested?
Because sometimes people are fucking retarded.
I don't know. I I mean the funny thing is you're basically saying what Ben Shapiro says, but instead of making everyone go to church, you want everyone to ride a bicycle.
I'm
So
not saying people should be forced to ride a bike, but I'm saying having this infrastructure in place, having things like mixed zoning is good. Having biking infrastructure and having like easier access to walkways are good things. They promote good things in society.
maybe I disagree. I think people only want to interact with people they want to interact with, and unless they're forced to interact with other people, they choose not to. If that makes sense. So like, for example, when I went to Oregon State for college, I associated with the veterans on campus, and I really didn't want to associate with anyone else, so I went and associated with the other veterans, and that's just how it is. And people choose, I mean, in the modern age that we live in, people choose the communities they want to be a part of, and That's really it.
Like so,
Like unless you force them, they're not going to join
well,
another
it's you don't
community.
necessarily even need to force them. You can look at other countries that do have this. It's mostly in like in the European Union. They have like these greater emphasis on like you can look at the Netherlands, right? But and they have really good community building. They have all the stuff that I just said, mixed zoning, biking infrastructure, easier access to walkways, and they have great communities because of these things. They also don't have an overweight
What
population and
is
health problems like we do in the US because people are biking and walking more. People are exercising, doing stuff.
what does that mean though, great community? Like, are you talking about social cohesion where everyone agrees with each other? Because I don't want that at
No,
all.
not
Like,
necessarily.
I just want to be left alone.
Not necessarily. It's they have a better sense of community. They feel like they belong somewhere, right? Like that's the idea of a better community is that everyone within that community, at least most people feel like they belong in some way. In the US, we don't really
Yeah.
have that kind of communal building and that communal structure. Everyone's more focused on themselves and their own interests without actually looking at the greater society and the future prospects. They only look at the now and for themselves. And I think that's not a great thing. Hyper individualism has killed the US.
I disagree, and in fact, I think it is the attempt because I would say the whole progressive project in the U.S. has been to do what you're talking about, and I think the whole progressive project in the U.S. has failed because American culture at its core is anti-progressive. Like we do not want we are individuals at heart, and we've always been individualistic at heart, and you can fuck off with the idea that people are gonna we're gonna bring everyone together. Like I don't think that's gonna happen, and I don't think it should happen. Like when you look at the United States, there's so many different cultures all over the U.S. Like even in my state of Oregon, there's like five major regions with very distinct cultures, and I don't think that we should force like homogenize things basically.
Okay. I mean, I'm not saying people are forced to interact. I don't agree with forcing interaction, but promoting a greater sense of community and greater likelihood of interaction is a good thing.
I mean, I think people will do that on their own regardless.
Uh, I mean, I don't really not within their local communities. People are mostly do that kind of stuff on the internet sphere more than anything else. But no one really
So
goes out to like the local coffee shop, for example, right? Like in the U.S., you have for to go to the nearest coffee shop, you have to drive like 10 minutes. It's out of the way versus being able to walk to like a corner coffee shop or something or a corner shop of some kind where you can see people and interact with people and they can interact with you if they want to.
Well, okay. So for one, I don't want to interact with any of my neighbors because I tried when I first moving, like specifically for me, I tried interacting with them. They didn't want to interact with me. And then during COVID, they actively voted and promoted policies that were, in my opinion, very tyrannical. And the mask came off very quickly that they were very okay with using the power of government to violate my rights very violently and not respect my rights, even though I wasn't harming them in any way. So I have no interest in talking to any of my neighbors around me. I don't care about them. If they all died tomorrow, I wouldn't care because they actively have shown me that they do not care about my rights, my welfare as an individual.
Well, then you
So
could also go somewhere else that you feel like you belong more in, right? You also have this ability to
I'm trying
move.
to.
You
I'm
should
trying to,
you should
believe
come
me.
here.
Fuck that. I don't after COVID, I don't want to live near anyone except for a very small group of people that are I'm close with, and
Like me.
that's it.
Like me, right? That's why we're gonna buy that land, right? We're gonna have our
Yeah,
commune.
sure, sure.
Sure. Alright.
As long as you don't build a fucking bike path, I don't care.
I'm gonna build a fucking bike pack, fuck you. I'm gonna have all like five of our wives just going and and biking
Our
everywhere.
wives, comrade. Our wives. No, I mean I wouldn't care if you built a bike path. I wouldn't
Yeah.
care.
State mandated
But
hot Asian wives for everyone.
but as long as I don't have to pay for the bike path, I don't care. But
I
I
mean,
wouldn't use it unless you were like you could use it without paying for it.
So
but I wouldn't use it
the
if you didn't want me to.
dude or dudette, or it said the freedom of movement is what caused the dissolution of communities. I don't necessarily agree. We've always had freedom
False.
of movement in the U.S.
False. Yeah, we've always had freedom of movement
and
forever.
and at least within the 50s, 60s era, sense of community was like really high. So
In fact, in fact, arguably, ever since they closed the frontier and they stopped allowing people from settling land wherever, I would say it has kind of calcified communities, and it has made it like no matter where you go in human history, people have always migrated, always and forever. Like there's always been migrations in all times ever, and it's because there's just a group of people that get tired of living in a certain spot, and for whatever reason, whether it's lack of resources or the population density is too high, or there's not enough grazing land like with the Mongols and things like that, people move and then they migrate. And of course, this caused lots of problems and conflicts because they typically moved onto lands that other people were living on. But like you look at like the Pilgrims when they came over, like the Pilgrims were leaving England because of religious differences with England and things like that, and
yeah,
then they colonized America. And unfortunately for the Indians, they killed all the Indians with disease and warfare. But I mean, people have always moved and migrated. It's just something they've always done.
yeah.
And arguably it allows people to be stronger with their community because they're then only with people that they want to be around.
In fact, it's the opposite of what the commenter said. It's not the movement, the freedom of movement, that's killing communities. It's the lack thereof that's killing these communities.
Yeah.
That's why we should have a North American
Yeah.
Union.
Yeah, well, and arguably like when we allow or when we have like space travel that's easy and cheap and people can be like in the expanse where they colonize asteroids, you're going to see people leave Earth just because they're like fuck this, I just want to go live on an asteroid and by myself, and they'll have like 500 other people with them, and they'll make
Yeah,
like a little asteroid colony.
an asteroid commune. Hello, comrade.
Yeah, well, I mean that literally like that's just how humans operate. Like arguably that's probably the reason why humans left Africa like a billion years ago. Well, not literally a billion, but you know what I mean. Like,
Hmm.
tens of thousands of years ago, it's because there was probably not enough game and they just left and followed the game and spread out that way. So
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
need we need more freedom of movement. We need like in Oregon, like the Bureau of Land Management owns half the state, and there's so much of the state that like is just nobody's allowed to settle on. Nobody's allowed to build a house or build a town, and it's like it's really frustrating because there's just so much land that people could go live on, but they refuse to do that. And so we see like cities grow and grow, but like they reach these boundaries where they can't expand anymore, and so then you see populations get dense, and I kind of think population density is a big problem because I don't think humans were ever meant to live in communities like we live in today.
So I got one question for the commenter, and then he has one for us as well. Well, at least a statement.
Okay.
I'm going to ask, what is your, for the commenter, the political ideology that you follow, or what are you think you're close to? And then also, the commenter had stated, nah, it's the movement. Think those connections are disposable since they can get up and leave. So, what's your comment to that?
But only recently. Well, can I respond to him real quick?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Oh,
this is with the whole disposable relationship thing, that's really only a recent thing. It's because we have like cars and planes and that allows us to travel. Back in the day, like back in the 1800s, if you left town, if you were run out of town, there was a good chance that if you didn't make it to the next town, you were gonna die because of exposure or lack of food and water and things like that. Like it community ties were stronger because you had to be in more in line with the community, because if they ran you out of town, you were kind of fucked. And there's no assurance that the next town's going to take you either, because if you're a vagabond that was run out of one town, the next town might be suspicious of you of why were you run out of the last town. So like just because we had freedom of movement doesn't mean that people can they had no ties. The ties thing is just because we have super big cities that are super dense and it's super easy to become anonymous.
So he said he's a techno-fascist, and I looked it up. It's also the same thing as
Mm.
techno-populism, where political rights are only gained by technical expertise, and it describes an
Uh,
authoritarian rule
he
executed by technocrats.
he basically believes that there are super specialized people with knowledge and training to understand how to run specific parts of human society. So like you would have a technocratic basically guild of economists, people who do what my degree did, who would study, economics, and then whenever you have a question about the economy, you would go to the guild of economists and say, "What do we do?" And they would give you their answer. And I'm willing to bet he sees people as he doesn't see people as people necessarily. He sees people as units that need to fulfill roles and tasks to make this greater machine of society work. And I abhor that. And society doesn't own me, and you can get fucked.
Yeah. He also said that his point was that you'd be fucked if you didn't care about connections. That's why community was better.
I mean, arguably, you are fucked today without community because like even living anonymously is very difficult to do. It's hard. Like I was unemployed for 6 months, and like it was so hard for me to get a job because it, nowadays, like because of like back in the day, you could send someone a resume and they may take you, but nowadays they have so many filters and things like that on getting a job. You either have to know how the filter works or know how to know someone to get a job, which is basically what happened with me, and that's how a lot of
Yeah.
people work. So like uh, being anonymous is not easy.
Yeah. And
It's still
also,
not easy today.
I would even say, like, with the invention of like e-commerce and stuff like email and stuff, everything you do is at your home online instead of you going out into the public and interacting with people and then maybe even sparking up interesting conversation, which then creates a sense of community.
Yeah. I don't
So
know. I'm very wary of technocracy, technofascism, all that stuff because it sounds great on paper. Why wouldn't you want to have the smartest person running what he does best? The problem is that people are people and they are flawed and they don't have perfect information and they don't know the whole picture. They don't know how what their actions will have knock-on effects and things like that. We
mhm.
saw that with COVID where we locked down the whole economy for 2 years and then we come out of it and go figure that everything is really expensive and awful and terrible. And I just don't trust that one person should have the decision for literally millions if not billions of people.
Yeah,
I don't think they can make a decision that that smart for everybody.
that's why we should have technology run everything.
No, that's even worse because we built the technology. And if people are bad at running things, oh god, the technology we made is going to be oh so much worse. I love it when people are like AI is going to rule the world. It's like AI will like not even be able to rule itself.
Yeah, we'll have a self-learning AI that's you've heard of ASI, right? Artificial
Yeah, or
superintelligence.
GI,
Artificial
a GI.
superintelligence. Yeah,
Yeah,
where
yeah, yeah. But
it's
it's a GI,
self-learning,
general
yeah,
intelligence.
self-learning, self-maintaining, etc. And it's uh know everything within like a week or whatever, and then be able to advance humans beyond. Just have that run everything, and we'll be good.
I
And
I literally think that I unironically think that if that happens, it'll do the computations for a week and like learn for a week, and then at the end of the week we're gonna be like, so general, yeah, exactly. Like, what do you do? And it's gonna be like, bring me a handgun. So we bring it the handgun, just it points at the CPU and pulls the trigger. And it's like, oh fuck.
actually, so someone did something like this with just a regular AI. It made it self-learning. It could like change its code. The first thing it did, it killed itself. It just deleted all of its own
You
code.
broke up. You broke up. You stop. You stop for a whole
Fuck
second.
God damn it. No, so they did this with a regular AI where it could learn on its own with the entire expanse of the internet, and it also had it could fix its code. Like it could change its code readily available, right? You can still hear me, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
It can
The
change its code. I hear you.
the first thing it did, it deleted all of its code.
Yeah, I'm sure because like reality is kind of hard and complicated, and it's just so much easier to like. I don't want to be doomer pilled. I don't think this way at all, but like a logical system cannot look at reality and think, how the fuck does this make any sense? So like in a way, like humans are blessed with the fact that we're ignorant and we're imperfect and we
Yeah.
can live in the chaos.
Humans are so terrible at governing themselves in some way that they would literally, there could be like an extraterrestrial that figured out how to run perfect societies coming down and saying this is how you do a perfect society, and humans would be like, nah, we good, we'll do this instead.
Yeah, I would do that. I would launch a nuke at it immediately. Turn the fuck around. Get off my lawn.
uh,
Unironically.
but ironically, yeah, they said that
Has our commenter
yeah,
go ahead.
he's been saying a couple things. He said it's easier to maintain the connections, but they're less valued in reference to technology. Techno fascists don't believe it has to be that rigged, which is what you were talking about earlier. They still have political experts and statesmen, since they're experts in the field of statecraft. Are you guys familiar with the iron law of oligarchy?
Say again, you cut out for
God
after you said iron
fucking,
law.
the iron law of oligarchy.
No, but I have an idea of what it is.
Yeah. Anyways, anything to the last couple of things that I had stated, or no? I guess he did.
I mean, I mean, I yes, in theory, you could have a non-totalitarian technocratic state, but how long would that last? America is not a technocracy, and COVID happened, and we almost became a technocracy overnight. And the only reason why we didn't is because people literally started to go crazy. So if a not technocratic state did almost became a technocratic, like a totalitarian technocratic state, I have my doubts on how long it would take for a technocratic state not to become just a dictatorship.
Also, don't you? I think it might be you. You also believe that humans are inherently evil, or something like that.
I say evil to get a rise out of people. I think humans are they're inherently self-interested, which isn't bad. But when you couple that with the fact that humans are also they lack perfect information, they can't act on their self-interest in like the perfect way. So they'll make really stupid decisions.
Or and if you put those imperfect
They'll make
people, and you put those imperfect people who are inherently selfish for their own ideas, you put them in power, then it just makes it worse for everyone else.
yeah. Well, and my whole ideology is I don't think you you
Me,
I don't think you, or I'm just saying you, it doesn't
you.
matter who you are, it's you could make the best decision for me.
I
That's
can
not to say
I
in
can make the
all
best
cases
decision for you though.
ever.
I can make the best one for you though.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a little more nuanced than that because obviously like I'm like when I had cancer, I went to a doctor and they gave me some options, but like I didn't just like trust what the doctor said wholesale. I went and I did my own research, and and the thing is I did my research on which doc I picked my doctor, I picked my oncologist. He seemed like a really good oncologist. And then I talked to him and he gave me a bunch he told me what he was going to do. I went and researched what he talked about, and I became to the conclusion this guy knows what he's talking about. He's really smart. I felt he had a good record and all this stuff, and I said, okay, I trust you. And it's not because you're a specialist. It's because I did my research, and I agree with you that you did a good thing. And there's no reason like I don't have to become an oncologist to know that my oncologist was doing good.
Yeah.
Like,
So
does
I
that make
looked at
sense?
yeah, and I looked it up. The iron law of oligarchy states that all forms of organization, regardless of how democratic they may be at the start, will eventually and inevitably develop oligarchic tendencies, thus making true
Yeah.
democracy
Well,
practically and theoretically impossible.
I mean, I do agree with that because that's where we live today. Because the reason why I agree with that is because people are lazy and they love giving responsibility to other people, and then those people become lazy and give more responsibility to other people, and so on and so forth, until eventually you have an oligarchy, and then eventually that oligarchy will create a dictatorship.
And you think we have
It's
a
just how it is.
dictatorship in the U.S.?
Um. Okay. Do we have a dictatorship? No, but the executive branch is obscenely powerful because the actual most powerful branch, the legislative branch, doesn't do what it's supposed to do, which is legislate. It's given all that power to the executive and judicial branch, and all the legislative branch does nowadays is pass spending bills. That's literally all it does. And so the president is super powerful because his departments can create laws based on interpreting regulations. This is Chevron deference. And then the judiciary is obscenely powerful because they can change the meaning of laws by interpreting laws and all that stuff. So I think we need to have a constitutional convention and really rein back the executive branch a lot
Okay.
and the judicial branch a lot.
All right. Go off, Queen. Go off. But
I would say unironically that like we should get rid of most of the bureaus in our government,
yeah, I think I'm just gonna
including the post office.
copy and paste it into the chat with the guy's saying because he just put a lot down. So I'll just so you can read it for yourself. It's quite a bit.
Dictatorship is only a tool in techno-fascism. It underlies it at its core, but it can allow for liberal markets. I disagree. And democracy, as long as it yields most of the power. Okay, technically, it would only swap back into a dictatorship temporarily to fix inefficiencies that cannot be remedied by democratic means. Okay, so yes, but I mean, we just need to look at like Rome to see what happened. And like when you look at Rome, or I mean, when you even look at America, like yeah, there are cases and times when um like in America, the executive does have the power to respond quickly to certain emergencies and things like that. But what we see happen is that those emergencies become forever because if you allow for the government to intrude on rights and liberties when there's an emergency, the government will find or even like I won't say create, but like they'll allow for emergencies or they'll define something to be an emergency so it can take power. Again, I cite COVID as this example. COVID, I think, was blown way more out of proportion than it really needed to be. And I don't think that Trump or like Trump wasn't really that bad at COVID, but like the governors, I think they had good reason to do what they did, but they went way too far. And then the precedent has been set that they can do this stuff just on a whim. And when you look at Rome, like I mean, anytime they had a dictatorship, the dictator took power for a long time, and it took an army threatening to march on Rome for the dictator to be threatened enough to relinquish his power. So I disagree vehemently. And
Yeah.
then there's another thing. What is central to techno-fascism is solely the aggregate power output of what is in its remit. Yeah, I mean, technically, but the problem, of course, then is that like what's in its remit will grow over time. Power tends to attract power. It's kind of weird. That's why the founding fathers split the government into a three-headed hydra that with one of the hydras being schizophrenic. So
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Peop This is why not the removal of government because people will just create their own government, but a minimal government to help regulate like small amount so that people don't rise up and create their own governments to then have fascism or communism or whatever to then steamroll everyone else who doesn't have a government. Which is why we're both not ANCAPs or
yeah,
anarchists because we think some government is okay.
tell that to Mickle.
Tell that to Mickle.
Yeah, tell that to Mickle because he calls me an ANCAP all the time, and I'm like, I'm not an ANCAP. I do believe in government. I just don't think it should be unlimited like you do. But
Yeah.
I I don't know. And then you posted,
Yeah.
why would it grow over time when its remit is entirely
So
why would it grow over time when its remit is the entire society since it's already totalitarian under the hood? Uh, oh, it would be centralized. Like the issue with power is that it
it's
always
from
gets
fear.
centralized in a smaller and smaller group of people. Yeah, exactly. Like again, like look at America. Like America started out uh, like under the idea that um y- every man had the vote, and originally it was a small group of people who voted, but then we enfranchised more people. But when you look at it today, who has power in America? It's an exceedingly small group of people. Like I used to not believe in the whole idea that like elites control our society and that whoever spends the most on elections wins, but that's really what it seems like. And that's I'm not someone who believes America is a democracy, but that's like anti-democratic. That's anti-American. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It like power always coalesces.
See, I think one of the problems as well is that because at first it was United States, right? Everyone was united under a banner, and each state kind of did its own thing under this one united banner under the federal government. But each state did its own thing. But then after
Yes.
the Civil War, then the central government, the federal, was like, okay, hold on, we need to reign. No, like y'all need to have less power. We need to make sure that we are more united. So then
Yes.
you see more under the federal and less of the states, and then now we're in this
Yes.
situation where states are trying to fight back for their rights under the thumb of the federal government.
It's not even that. It's after the Civil War, you saw the executive gain so much power, and since the Civil War, I can't name a single time when the executive branch did not take power and gave it up, or when the executive branch took power where it gave it up later. Like the executive branch is so powerful now. It's not even funny. And like it's not even that the president himself is powerful because like as we saw with Trump, like his bureau chiefs, like his Department of Defense secretary of the Department of Defense, a Marine named fuck goddamn it was chaos. It was what I'm a Marine and I it's because I hate him. It's chaos. What was his name? I'm General. Anyways, he in Syria he lied to Trump about the pulling the troops out of General Mattis. I don't know why I didn't think of that. I'm a terrible Marine. But General Mattis lied to Trump about pulling the troops out of Syria. Like the president only has so much power as to tell his Secretary of Defense to pull the troops out of Syria. If the SecDef doesn't want to do it, Trump can fire him, but will the next guy do it?
He posted two more things. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we work under the hypothesis that revolution occurs when power outgrows its vassal and system. A permanent dictatorship would lead to such a situation and revolt occur at the end of it. I mean, I agree, but like then you're just advocating for a Hegelian system of like a rising and falling technocracy. Like it's nothing permanent. Whereas like the idea that I at least advocate for, and I think Sonic is that like people should live under the system that they want to live under, and
Full
if they
movement.
don't want to live
Yeah.
under it, they shouldn't be forced to. Yeah,
Yeah.
they shouldn't be forced to.
So we're both more libertarian
As
in the
opposed to a
sense. Yeah, we're both more libertarian, where less
well,
government is good, but
literally liberal, but
liberal. Yeah,
I hate
we're liberals.
libertarianism.
Yeah, but you
Yeah,
apparently,
liberals.
yeah, we're liberals. I am a sock lib,
Um.
but yeah. And then he,
Anyways, and then if the dictatorship leads to weakening society and net power decrease, a revolution would also occur. I mean, that's just like, but that's like people. Here's the other thing. It's just an iron law of human society that you can only make people live under a system they don't want to live under for so long before they literally are like, I would rather die than live under this. And when that happens, then you get like the French Revolution where, or like ISIS suicide bombers where they're like, or Hamas, fighters who they don't care that they're literally going to die. So I mean, yeah, but like the whole point is that we don't want that to happen, and so we don't want like I'm actually like anti-revolution in a way. Like I don't want revolution, because it's very violent and bloody, and I don't want people killing each other.
Yeah.
So
Also, power
I think revolution
vacuums
is actually kind of
exist.
bad.
Power vacuums also
Yeah.
exist. So like, you can look at the forming of the Soviet Union, right? You went from one authoritarian regime under the monarchy to then the socialist regime under Stalin. Well, at first it was Lenin because he led the revolution, but but that created a power vacuum which allowed Lenin and whatever to get involved and then to get into power. And then you see the dissolution of the USSR. Then you had these not these factories being run by gangs at the time because there was a power vacuum. There was no government to help protect them. So you have this is not a great revolution is a terrible thing. This is why incremental change over a period of time is required for to keep societal cohesion.
Yeah, there's only been one revolution that did not lead to a massive bloodshed that resulted in a dictatorship being formed.
The
It was the United
U.S., the
States.
United States of
Yeah,
America.
we are the only revolution that was actually successful in implementing what the goals of the revolution were. We're
Yeah,
the only one. This is it, baby.
because
So, and the funny thing is, the founders initially they didn't go in with a plan. They were ready to do French Revolution style stuff, but there were enough people with enough sanity to be like, listen, we need to really plan this out. We can't just shoot from the hip and figure this out later. We need to figure out what we want and why we want it. Which is why, like, when you study American history, like they don't talk about the battles of the revolution. Like when I studied American history in college, we didn't talk about the battles. We talked about the Continental Congress and old white dudes in powdered wigs in Pennsylvania in the summer, sweating their balls off without AC, discussing what it means to be free.
yeah, and then
Because
this
that was the American
yeah,
Revolution.
and then that's how you get the Articles of Confederation, which then after like a
Mhm.
couple of years changed into the actual Constitution.
They were smart enough not to wed themselves. They were like, there's a saying called the Constitution is not a suicide pact, and they were saying that because they they the anti-federalists were like, this Constitution seems like a suicide pact, if we're not allowed to leave and be our own sovereigns and things like that. And because the founders are smart enough to realize that you can't force people to live under a system that isn't working and isn't serving their best interest.
He said the American
So
Revolution was bloody. It was bloody, but for only that single revolution. There wasn't internal revolutions
not
in the U.S. It was only one big
it's
revolution for freedom, and then everyone was a cohesion afterwards. There was no
it's
infighting.
it's not it's not even discussable how unbloody the revolution was. Like, don't get me wrong, like they did some fucked up shit to the tax collectors. They literally tarred and feathered them, which, today is meant as a mockery, but back then it was literally pouring boiling tar on them, which would, tear their skin off and things like that. They hung tax collectors. Like, they did some terrible things, but when you compare it to literally any revolution before or after, like even the English Revolution, the Glorious Revolution in the 1600s, and the one where they killed Charles the First, like those revolutions, the American Revolution can't hold a candle to how unviolent it was compared to those revolutions.
He said he also added the American Civil War, but this was years
The American
after.
Civil War is different.
Yeah, and also that was
The
that
American Civil War
was
is a different discussion.
that was another century after the official the before the well after the revolution. But for just a pure revolution on its own, it wasn't that bad compared to every other revolution.
Yeah.
But revolution, and there wasn't any infighting at the time. Everyone understood this is the point. We are going to do this, and they did it.
Well, hold on. There was infighting, but it wasn't violent. It was with words, because everyone realized that we do have to stick together to some degree, because the new country was fragile and teetering on the edge of potentially collapsing. Most It's funny, most like the reason why King George acceded to allowing the American Revolution to happen, and why he and John Adams had their treaty discussions and things like that, is because King George literally thought that America would collapse within like 5 years and he could just take over the colonies again. And that's why the War of 1812 was fought, because the British didn't take America seriously as a nation, and the British basically treated America as a rogue colony, and that's why they were impressing the sailors into their service and things like that. And it took like the American Revolution didn't technically, it wasn't over until 1812 when like we actually fought the war with England and we actually asserted ourselves as a sovereign state with the capacity to actually fight a war on our own without the help of the French.
Yeah.
So
And then he said Hitler's revolution was less bloody if you exclude the actions afterwards, and he said same for fascist Italy. But for Hitler, he was elected into power, wasn't he? There wasn't a actual revolution. He was elected.
Crystal Knock would like to know your location, or I'm sorry, the Knight of Long Knives would like to know your location.
Ah.
That was very like literally assassinating like people that are like I
Yeah,
can't
I
think
mean,
of
I knew about
anyone in
that,
America.
but yes, there was that in which he did execute, in a sense, assassinate their political opponents, but didn't the people of Germany elect him into power as well?
34% of Germans voted for Hitler, which is why I love democracy. It's a joke, by the way. I
Yeah,
fucking hate democracy.
yeah, hail Hitler.
But
Heil.
Jesus fucking Christ. But no, but like yes, Hitler was elected into power, but like it was an election. It wasn't a revolution.
Yeah,
Like
and then
a revolution
for Mussolini, it was the same
is a
thing.
violent.
And for Mussolini, I'm pretty sure it was the same
Yeah,
thing. Yeah, and I would even
revolutions
say,
are a. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Italy's
Go ahead.
fascism wasn't like overall. It wasn't what made it bad was Hitler going over there and being like, "Hey, let's start doing his stuff." But Mussolini, he just wanted colonial. He had colonial ambitions, but he didn't have racist ambitions like Hitler did.
Well, he was racist, but like compared to Hitler, like he
Yeah.
wasn't that
So
bad.
for Italian fascism, because I've studied this a little bit, Italian fascism was much different from Hitler's Nazism. The
Yeah.
fascism of Mussolini was simply all Italians. Like if you're an Italian citizen, then we are all one. This is one social cohesion.
Yeah.
Versus uh,
It's literally the
versus
passies.
yeah, versus Hitler's Nazism, which was if you're of German blood, then you're a German citizen, and everyone not of German
And we
blood
own
is
you.
yeah. Well, with Mussolini, it was we owned you if you were Italian, but there was one simple Italian cohesion versus Nazism, which was if you're not of German blood, you are not a citizen and you are an enemy of the people.
Yeah.
So Italy's fascism wasn't that bad overall.
Yeah, it's just I can't understand anyone who reads like 1 minute of history and can come to the conclusion that oh, power doesn't just coalesce. Like it happens all the time. Like power just naturally coalesces other power. Like it's kind of inarguable. Like
Yeah.
it's just the reality of power.
And also,
So
if your idea of power isn't the one that's involved, then a revolution occurs in which then you are now the power, and then that happens over and over and over again.
yeah, yeah. Like we were saying, the reason why the American Revolution is kind of like the most important event ever in human history ever is because it is the one revolution that didn't go off the walls.
Like
It was like
we didn't try to go in and try
yeah.
to then annex Britain afterwards. We stayed in our own bubble and just went westward. We didn't try to. Well, we did a little bit with Canada and Mexico, but we didn't try to go for revenge against Britain, which is you don't
And
see
not
that
only
in
that,
history.
even the loyalists who stayed afterwards, like a lot of them did get messed with for a little while, but eventually, like within like a couple of years, most people didn't give a fuck if you were a loyalist during the war and things like that. Like it wasn't like I said, I can't say it enough. Like the American Revolution was not like what I mean by bloody is that like the American Revolution was not bloody at killing people who had no power against the revolution. Whereas like with the French Revolution, if the Committee of Public Safety declared you an enemy of the revolution, you were fucked.
You were
Like there was nothing
executed.
you could do.
Yeah.
People would hunt you. Yeah, well, people would hunt you down and kill you if they didn't capture you and bring you to the guillotine by yourself. And there was mob violence on the street. Like there was not anywhere near that at all during the American Revolution. There was not a, it wasn't even 1% of the mob violence.
During the Soviet formation, you saw the exact same thing. Anyone who was loyal to the king at the time was executed. So
or mob violence. I mean, there was just like mob violence in general during the Russian Revolution. Like people would like I don't know, like I I don't know, man. It surprises me that anyone can with a straight face say the American Revolution was bloody. It just wasn't. Like we're kind of pussies when it comes to committing atrocities. We couldn't even put the Japanese in concentration camps correctly. Like, come on. Americans are fucking pussies when it comes to violence.
you said, yeah, because that yielded the most power since wars are costly. It wasn't so ideological dogmatic like in the Russian and French one.
Americans were like the people who fought in the revolution were like basically the ISIS version of liberals, which is like I said, Americans are fucking pussies at committing violence. Like even the most extreme among us couldn't like
Yeah.
do anything a quarter as bad as the Russians or the French.
We can't even bomb children, Syrian children, correctly.
Yeah, we're so I don't understand. I don't understand how anyone can say this with a straight face. Americans are at our core. We're pussies when it
Yeah,
comes to killing people. We don't want to. We like. Have you ever heard of the story of Sergeant York?
no.
Okay, so some of it is apocryphal, but and I don't know what is or isn't apocryphal, but Sergeant York was he was a Quaker in Pennsylvania, and when when America entered World War I, he was drafted, and he tried to get a deferment because he was a Quaker, and Quakers are pacifists. And I think this is the apocryphal part, but they didn't defer his they didn't defer his draft, and they put him in the infantry, and I think the apocryphal part is he came to terms with fighting in the war, and then he went and fought in World War I, and he actually by himself, because he's a fucking badass, or he may have been in Kentucky, I forget. He was a pacifist though, but he went and captured a whole German company by himself. He captured like 134 dudes by himself, and he only had to kill like 7 people, but he was like a really good shot and things like that.
Yeah,
And like that's the Americans like, and it was made into a movie in 1941, and that's why I think it's partly apocryphal, because 1941 is when America went into war. No, it was 42, excuse me. But it's a good movie because I think it's actually the quintessential World War II movie, because it is the idea of America going to war, which is we don't want to go to war, but we have to. And I think Sergeant York does capture the American spirit of Americans don't want to commit violence, but we will if we have to.
yeah. Throughout history, everyone's been declaring war on us. Hardly ever we've actually properly declared war on people of our own sovereignty.
Yeah. Well, and usually when we do go and do stuff, it's usually a reaction to other people. And that's not to
Yeah,
excuse the shitty shit that we do. Like, but I mean, to be honest, like even our invasion of Iraq was a reaction to 9/11, even if
yeah,
it was wrong. Like, I don't think us invading Iraq for 9/11 was a good decision. I think that was wrong, but it was a reaction to 9/11.
yeah. He said Brits are kind of weak during that time. No, they were like the top naval power. They were not
Have you
weak. They
have
they
you
ruled the
ever
world.
have you ever have you ever heard of the bombing of Dresden? Where they bombed the shit out of a city because they could, and the guy who planned the bombing campaign said, "Well, they fucking deserved it." So Bomber Harris strikes again.
you know,
Like
Brits were fucking strong all throughout history. They just didn't. They just yeah.
they're also kind of psychopathic. Like
I mean, if you want to talk about psychopathic, the fucking Canadians, fucking hell, they're
yeah.
fucking bloodthirsty. That they're apologizing so much because of the fucking war crimes they committed during World War II.
Also, I'm gonna hot take. Canadians are fucking assholes. People say Americans are arrogant assholes. No, you have not met a Canadian. Canadians will like, well, actually, let me talk to you about our national healthcare system, which you Americans are so savage not to have. Like, if you get a cold, you're gonna get a bill for $30,000. Like,
At least we can go see a
fucking
doctor.
like nobody in Canada, nobody has ever asked a Canadian about the national healthcare system, but they will tell you all about it.
Yeah. Although
So
to be fair, every other country at the same like especially like Brits and France, they'll be like, oh yeah, we have this thing, But how about the school shootings? And that's the only thing they can say on the U.S. is like, oh, school shootings.
We don't even have that. We like the school shooting thing isn't actually that big of a problem. It's just the news reports on it. Like
Yeah.
most school shootings, all that happens is like a kid brings a gun to school and like waves it around, and then maybe fires like a shot in the air and freaks people out. Like school shootings are not a problem.
You know, they're really like they're bad. Sure,
Also,
no one should be shooting up schools or anything like that or any public event. But I mean,
also
they're way too
school
over
shootings happen all the
publicized.
time.
Yeah.
School shootings happen all the time in other countries. They just don't report on it.
Yeah. Also, because
They happen
no
all the
one,
time.
no one actually looks.
Yeah.
Because they don't, because they think, oh, because guns are banned, there is no gun violence, so we won't look for it.
Yeah, exactly. Even though like in Germany, like Germany had more gun violence than America for a while. So
Yeah. He said they had 45,000 men during the American Revolution across all the colonies. I feel like if they had 200,000 men, instead the revolt would have been much more bloody. No, it probably would have
maybe.
been. It probably would have been over
I mean,
sooner.
maybe. I mean, I don't like counterfactuals because we don't know, and
Yeah,
it's like the problem with reality is very, very, very complicated.
it's
So
also
maybe.
shh. We're
Yeah.
only going in one direction. There is no Marvel branching paths to new directions that we can test. That just you can't do that.
Yeah. I just don't like to talk in counterfactuals. It's just not my thing.
Yeah, I like talking counterfactuals, but the problem is everyone's ideologically biased towards one specific idea. So, like for me, if I see instead of it was 45,000, it was 200,000, I just think it would have ended sooner. But then he would probably say that
Yeah.
it would just be more
Maybe
bloody.
maybe yeah, I mean maybe more people would have gotten involved because they would have seen it as a bigger issue and more directly.
Yeah,
Because the problem is the reason why a lot of people didn't get involved is because most of the fighting was like in a handful of places and most people weren't directly affected by it. So
yeah, but
I don't know.
we'll never know because we can't test counterfactuals.
Yeah.
History's linear; it's not branching. So,
Mhm.
hmm
Anything else?
he hasn't added anything else, and we've been going for about an hour and a half.
Yeah. Do we wanna wrap it up?
I guess I don't know. I'm
Eh,
enjoying it. I've been enjoying it
let's
so
wrap it
far.
up.
Okay. All right. So normally at the end, since you're new, we do book reviews and stuff like that. Um, I guess like a not really necessarily a review, but rather, uh, you should go read this book.
Suggestion.
It's a suggestion. Yeah. Normally, I
It's stuff we've
don't
read.
have or not read. It just kind of be like, hey, I think this will be a good book. You should go read it or try to read it. Um,
Yeah.
but I always never have a book prepared, and Delta's always got a book. So.
Because he is the least read person in the universe, and I'm the most well read person in the universe.
Also because I'm busy as fuck with college and as fucking
You should
everything.
be reading more. You should be reading more, nerd.
Yeah, I mean, I, whatever. Anyways, you got your
All right,
book.
my book suggestion, because we talked about Senator Armstrongism and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. We should read the book that inspired it. The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. It's a fantastic book. I recommend everyone read it because it will change your view on biology, and like I said, you will hate your genes afterwards.
Yeah, and the book I'm going
Your
to
genes are not your friends.
the book I'm going to suggest is the game Metal Gear Rising itself.
It's a good book.
Yeah, you should
It's a
also.
good book.
Yeah, you should
You
also.
could
You should also
you could
play.
just
You should also play the book Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater.
honestly, if you don't have a book, you should just do a video game because you have a fuck
True.
ton of video games.
True. I should do video games every
We could
fucking.
do that.
Yeah,
We could do that.
I'll do video games. You do books, or we'll just do media. We'll just do media in general, right? That'd be easier
Book.
for
Oh,
me.
and a movie? Wait, movie.
Movies.
Sergeant York, the 1942 version of Sergeant York. It's in black and white, so most people fall asleep to that
Oh,
shit. I love watching old black and white movies, and I remember watching Sergeant York at 5 in the morning before I went to high school, and it changed my life. It was so fucking amazing.
you
It was
should
beautiful.
you should watch the anti-war film All Quiet on the Western Front. Absolutely fantastic movie. Love it. I watched it with my fiance. Everyone needs to watch that movie. Also, the
All right.
commenter also has a book as well, or a suggestion.
Okay, send it.
The concept of the political by Carl Schmidt.
The Concept of the Political by Carl Schmitt.
By Carl Schmitt. Yeah, we love Schmitt. I don't know who the fuck it is, but and since you're also new, I also upload these VODs to the YouTube channel named the exact same thing. It should literally just be the first thing that pops up on YouTube. Go subscribe, like, comment, subscribe, do everything. Go share to all your
Alrighty.
friends and family.
Alrighty.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Woo.
Yay!
Yeah.